My guest this morning is Kathleen Gallagher, filmmaker, documentary maker, and last night Kathleen's latest documentary, Water Whisperers, premiered in Wellington. Beautiful, beautiful film. Kathleen, welcome.
Thank you, Mike.
And how did you come to make this documentary? Your fourth documentary?
Yeah, I made this, it's an environmental documentary. I made it following on the heels of Earth Whisperers, Papatuanuku, because when I made that film, I was intending to include all the earth and the water together, and it was just too big, we just couldn't do it. And so then, yeah, we made Water Whisperers, Tangaroa, following on that.
Okay, so it came out of Earth Whisperers, and then you already had people involved as contributors to that, or you had to find a whole new set?
Well, Kath Wallace and Bill Ballantyne, I'd already interviewed them for Earth Whisperers. Kath Wallace is a lecturer in economics at environmental economics at Victoria University, and Bill Ballantyne set up the oldest marine reserve in New Zealand and one of the oldest ones in the world at Goat Island in 1975. So the other people, with the Huranui River, they, in February this year, they came down and they said they'd heard that I was going to work on something on water, and they were taking a raft down the Huranui River, and so they wanted me to start. They said, why don't you start making this movie now? And so I just went ahead with it.
So some of those scenes are in the movie?
Yes, that's all in the movie. Yes.
And this is a Canterbury River?
The Huranui River is a North Canterbury River.
North Canterbury.
And they did 6 days. They started right at the source of the Huranui, and they tramped down through terrible weather conditions. And then they took a raft from across Lake Sumner and right down the river.
And what was the purpose of that expedition?
What they were hoping to do was to unite the users of the river. So on the raft were people from along the river who, farmers and landowners and kayakers and people that use the river in different places. And lots of kayakers and riverbug people, they all joined them on the journey. So a lot of people joined them into local iwi were on the raft.
So it was like a movement that grew through that physical journey, or?
Well, what they were trying to do, because on the Huranui there's been a lot of division about some people want to build a dam there, and some people don't want there to be a dam there, and there's been a lot of division. The water take's been quite high on the Waitoi River, which runs into the Huranui, so it's been fairly badly damaged, and so there's a lot of unease and a lot of. So they were trying to, by this journey, pull everybody together. Yeah.
There's that wonderful imagery in the movie about the dam being that strangulation effect on a river. I thought that came through really well, how people talked about it just strangled the life of the river by damming it and the damage over the years.
Yeah, that's the Winnaman Wintu. That was up the Rakaia River, and that was Headman Mark from the Winnaman Wintu, and he talks about a dam being like a tourniquet on a river. And also John Wilkie, who's Ngāti Mamoi and Kaitahu. They have a group of fisher folk, and those people live by all the rivers in the South Island, and they care for them. And they've done it for a long, long time, and they still do it. They still live there and look after the rivers. And so they talked about the problems of damming and the other options that there are for damming. That you can take, when it's high, you take some off, and there's lots of different options that haven't really been fully explored, but work quite well.
And then the documentary travels throughout New Zealand. There's a lot of other regions that you bring into that. How did you find those people in other parts of New Zealand moving out from Canterbury?
Well, somebody in Landcare Trust approached me regarding the Aorere farmers, and Barbara Stewart. And because she'd been heavily involved with them. And in the story with the Aorere farmers, they become the environmentalists, and it's just wonderful. Like the dairy farmers, they're out there planting their land, and they did it because the mussel farmers were under huge threat. They were just going to lose their livelihood, and they had a big public meeting, and it was very difficult, and they had a really rough time, and they all pulled out of the Environment Court together, and the Aorere farmers, the dairy farmers, they spearheaded the shift. So they've got big riparian planting strips on all their rivers and creeks and streams, and that protects the water from sediment runoff and all sorts of runoff it holds it.
Yes, that the sediment runoff was a huge issue that became very, very apparent in the documentary. I thought that point was made very well.
Yeah, sediment runoff is a huge problem. When we were just flying here from Christchurch up to Wellington, we were just looking out and you could just see it. Like, it's just going off the country. And we really need, like they've done in Raglan, we need massive riparian planting along all the sea fronts as well as the river and streams. Yeah, and it's making such a huge difference in Raglan. I was in Raglan in the early 90s, and it was filthy, and now it's absolutely stunning. It's beautiful and it's clean, and the farms, they don't look like Canterbury dairy farms. They look like forest farms. There's all the slopes. They've planted all the slopes. And the amazing thing in Raglan is that the farmers have found that that's increased their productivity, so they can carry a lot more cows on their land than they could before. So the more trees they plant, the more cows they can run, and the more healthy the cows are.
The other thing I thought that the powerful element of the documentary was the effect on the sea life, the life of the sea and our fisheries. Showed very powerful in the documentary, and those beautiful underwater shots. Yeah. I thought it really brings it home.
Yeah, well, that's up at Poor Nights. Steve Hathaway we filmed underwater up there, but it's stunning up at Poor Nights Island. Yeah. And that's a marine reserve, but only 1% of our coast is a marine reserve, and 30% of our land is in conservation estate. So it's a really serious problem.
Yeah. Oh, well, I hope this wins all the international awards, Kathleen, and people, from the point of view that not only is it a beautiful film, but that it has such an important message environmentally. So thank you again for talking to us today.
Thank you, Maureen.